Yeah, it's 6:06 p.m. It is Monday, April 14th, and I have decided to come back and make another video because I don't feel I'm bored. That's what it is. I'm bored and unmotivated in my apartment. And so, because I really don't have anything to think about other than, you know, gang stalking or something along those lines. Something that had something stupid Rex Laverne, who I'm glad is dead, and all the other issues that went along with him. I'm burnt out on that thought process. I want something new in my life. I'm so tired of the whole thing. I am. I'm really tired of the whole thing. It's like, and I feel as though I want to do different things, but I also feel limited because of what these people put in place for me. When they did the targeting, when they did the blacklisting, and the campaign smear and all that other stuff. So it's like, I don't know what to do with myself sometimes. It's like I'm very angry at this person. So, to get off the subject, I try to focus on things that I do enjoy. Okay, and I think I've talked about my little arts and crafts. Now, I am not an artist at all. I do not paint very well. I rely on stencils if I even try to make something look halfway decent. The only thing I can really paint, like, I can paint pictures okay, like on flower pots, which I would love to have my patio garden in the back. But anyway, yeah, I'm okay with like flower pot painting, but I'm not somebody who can just like, sit up with a canvas or whatever, even though I have one. I think it's kind of funny because it's like I like to pretend that I'm Bob Ross. But I have absolutely no artistic skills whatsoever. Now, I have actually watched some YouTube tutorials, and for some reason, I just I'm really impatient with all of that. So I don't have any like deep artistic skills. But every once in a while, I do have a collection of different color paints, and I use them for either flower pots, painting little pictures like that little picture right here, the little white one with the flowers. And I actually painted this, which is really not a big deal, okay? And really basic type stuff, like that brown one over here. I've done this, which is, almost looks like a childish type painting. But, I do it because, it's nice to work with color and it does uplift the mood, okay? And I don't always have to like or think that it has to be the standard of like a professional artist. Sometimes it's just a healing thing to do to work with color. And also, to create your own interpretation of what it is that you see. I might present it poorly, but at least I'm doing something to keep me busy, right? So, I'm like, I have all this free time, so I decided to come on and make another video. And what I wanted to talk about was I wanted to show you my little pin collection that I started to accumulate right before I lost my last job. Now, I got this. This is one of the little containers. I've had this forever. But I keep all my pins. And my pins go on either my coats or I don't really put them on the clothes, but you can also use this as a brooch. Like if you have a shirt with a collar, you can also use them as a brooch. Now, I got this one, and this is like little oranges, which I thought were cute. I don't know if you can see that really well. That's cute. Everyone knows I love grapes, right? I love eating them. I love grapes. I thought this was cute. And these are like under $2. I got these all from Temu, right? They're very cute. What else I got? Oh, I haven't really, I don't think I've worn this yet, but it's a peacock, and I think it looks really pretty with my against the green coat that I had purchased before the spring came. It was a really nice looking coat, and I actually got that coat from. I think I got it from Amazon. It's probably one of those fast fashion pieces, but it's not all bad. I have to say that the coat that I actually purchased, I actually like the material. It's thick enough. I would not say that it's a fine type coat, like the kinds that my mom used to have in her closet that were nicely lined and nice and contoured to the body. Nice, beautiful tailor type clothing. That's expensive, okay? And Maria doesn't have that kind of money. But I can understand, people who like to go to thrift stores. That's one of the reasons why I used to like going to thrift stores, because you can find some really good quality, classic vintage type clothes, right? But I do, I'll buy things from Amazon if I think it's cute, if I think it's pretty or whatever. This turtleneck shirt is from like Amazon, one of those Amazon retail sellers. I have noticed, like what they call fast fashion, the material is not as sturdy as, some of the old vintage pieces. Like, I know I grew up with wearing turtlenecks, right? And turtlenecks were not made of like this t-shirt material, okay? It wasn't. They were made of like a thicker type cotton with usually a cotton poly blend or whatever. But anyway, but I have a combination. I have some vintage pieces in my closet. I have some fast fashion. I have some whatever. I have a little bit of mix of everything. Sometimes I just buy what's cute and what uplifts the mood. But yeah, this is a cute pen. I've mentioned pomegranates before, and I got this one right here, which I think is really pretty. And this would be a cute brooch. Actually, it would be with a little collar and then like a yeah. Actually, I don't think this the way that this pin is created. I mean, attached in the back. You could use it as a brooch for that. It would be lopsided, but if it was, if it was upright, I guess you could use it as a brooch if you really wanted to. I like this owl pin that I got. I remember wearing it on my denim jacket for a while. That was cute, and I also put it on my brown jacket that I got from the thrift store last fall. And I got like two brown jacket. Wait, yeah, a brown jacket from the thrift store last fall, and I like it. And it kind of reminds me of Kate Middleton's, really. I mean, and it's not that I was trying to copy her, okay, but when it comes to jackets and stuff like that, sometimes it's really good because I don't know, I don't see myself as a jacket person. I really don't. So if you want to experiment and you look at other people and what they have, sometimes it gives you some ideas, okay. But yeah, I thought it was cool, and it does remind me of her. This right here, this pen, I like this. It looks like it's a waning moon and it's kind of blowing stars or whatever. I thought this was a really cute one. And like I said, these things are not expensive. And it's so funny because, like, I know he was pissed off. Rex Laverne, who I'm very glad who's dead. Um, he was pissed off because what bothered me was the fact that he seemed unrepentant. Okay, the very fact that he caused all of this trauma and then started making fun of it or trying to highlight the fact that I was, someone who liked to buy things for my desk area, which I think is a fairly common thing. I mean, like I said, when I was growing up, I know a lot of people had desk ornaments and stuff like that. But anyway, and I know it was an argument that had long been gone and done with. It's just that I found out really slow. I just didn't like the fact that he was exploiting me. I didn't like the fact that he was taking up my time. I didn't like the fact that, he put something in place based off of his ignorance, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in just a minute. Anyway, I featured these in my last newsletter. I thought these were so cute, really. I love birds. So, yeah, I bought the blue one. I didn't buy all, I think there's like 6 to choose from in the selection of Temu, and these are under like $1.50, I think it was. It was something really inexpensive. I didn't buy all 6 of them, but I bought 3 of them. I think the other one is on one of my jackets that's in the closet, but I love these. These are so cute. I was actually thinking about decorating with these, maybe putting them on like pieces of art or something. They're just so cute. I love birds. And here's another bird too. I might wear this for Easter. Like if I don't go to church, okay, I really don't. I don't go to church. But I remember, when I used to, when I was a little girl, my mom used to put me in pretty frilly dresses, like pretty patent leather shoes with cute anklet type socks. I always had pretty little handbags that match my shoes. I always had pretty beautiful church attire. I remember wearing that sort of stuff. And it was something that I was not allowed to wear to school, right? Because those two wardrobes were completely separate. But if I was a woman who did go to church, I probably would wear something like this. And these are the kind of colors that, to me, when I think of Sunday morning, I think of these colors like light blues, yellow, sun, sky, heaven, weird type stuff. This little bird even has like a little halo or crown around its head. It's very cute. And this right here is my blueberries. I actually think this would look cute and kind of weird, kind of cool with it as a brooch. And I got these right here. This was on my denim jacket. It says 100% magic. Of course, I just had to have that. And then I have like a little black kitty too, which I thought was cute. But yeah, that's my little collection. And then let me show you my piece of art that I made. Now, remember when I was working over at Rex Laverne's house, a place of business, who is dead, and I'm very glad that he is. I had made some art. It was a little black picture. I think it was like an oval shape or whatever. And so I made something similar with this right here. This is just like one of these. You get these like a three in a pack at the the Dollar Tree. They're flat, right? They're flat little pieces, canvases, but you get three in a pack. And I just had some leftover paint, and I collect gems. Like I'll go to the Dollar Tree, and they'll have like packs of gems, and I have already have paint, so I added these gems again. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. It's art, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be great or anything, but I got these. And then I noticed they had these little crescent moons at the dollar store, so I just had to buy them. So I made another black background um, picture using gems and whatever. So this is like a little companion piece. Now, I had some intuitive messages that I got. Now, I know that I've made some videos and I've been talking about things like relating to the moral reset. And even though I don't get a lot of traffic on my YouTube channel, I do know that people are talking about it. Okay, and how do I know they're talking about it? Because I'm one of those people. The reason why I'm getting that attention is because people know that I'm extremely psychic and I understand what goes on around me. So people are talking about my political views, which I've never really talked about before. But the moral reset is not in any way trying to it's not on any side. Okay, I have never considered myself Republican. I never considered myself Democrat. Like I said, my view of politics was as long as I could pay my bills and just kind of stay out of the way. I kid you not, this was my mentality about everything. I wanted nothing to do really with anything at all because I was very unhappy. What I mean by that is I had mentioned when people talk about politics and why they would bring it up, and they would do it just to start some sort of fight that I had no interest in being in. Okay. So I figured, I'm a peaceful person. I pay my taxes. That's as far as it goes. Leave me alone, drop dead, and whatever. But, this is an issue that affected me. And I never really, I never taken any interest in, even though I'm a black woman, okay? And I've dealt with racism pretty much all my life, right? I have never tried to attack or make any sort of statements relating to anything. So everything that happened to me was a one-sided argument, right? So one of the things that I believe in is always keeping your composure. Okay. And my number one point of my philosophy is to always remain blameless. Okay. The reason why Rex Laverne is dead, which I'm so very glad. Let's all say it together, shall we? I'm glad that motherfucker's dead. Okay. But anyway, my thing is that, I'm somebody who, and please forgive me for being so, nitpicky and just rubbing in the fact and then the fact that he's dead because, I have really suffered a lot, okay, because of what this man did. And, there's times where, I wake up in the middle of the night and I keep thinking, this man has caused so much damage, okay? But see, I have my own views, and they are based on the law. Okay, I do have my own spiritual views, and my spiritual views, I would say, are very peaceful. Okay, very, very peaceful. I do believe that I am someone who is divinely led, and I know, and I've always had my suspicions, and never really want to talk about stuff like that because I understand what those sort of statements can do. It can make people very angry, especially if they're not on your side. You know what I mean? And that's the reason why I hate politics because it's all about sides. Okay. To me, I don't want to be in sides. I want to be in truth. That's the difference. Okay. And so when I talk about things that are written in law, when the laws get created because, an issue has already happened and they saw the flaw and error in that way. So then they put it and they create a law. Okay. Because we want to make sure, let's make sure this never happens again. Okay. Or it could be somebody who is farsighted and says, okay, well, the most likely outcome of something like this going on is going to end up in this situation. Okay. Laws are created to correct and to prevent what is most likely to occur in nature. So that means, are people going to get jealous of other people? Yes. Are they going to plot and do covert type BS harassment tactics? Hey, it's already thought of because it's in a law. Somebody's already thought of it, believe it or not. Why? Because it's happened before. Everything from stealing, murder, whatever, there's a law for it. Okay. Why? Because these are natural responses of people, especially when people are suffering. Now, I am in no way justifying people committing murder, stealing, slander, or anything, but I understand the pressures that we have here on this earthly plane of existence. We know how hard it is to exist. We know how hard it is to exist. Okay. This is one of the reasons why there is so very little love in the world, because people rely on other people's resources to the point of where they don't see them as human anymore. People literally look at their family members as commodities. This is why it shocks me. This is why when I found out who my real mother was, I was like, man, this sucks. This sucks. Because, maybe when she was younger, she thought being a star was a great thing. Okay, to me, being forced to have kids and then and being a part of some human trafficking ring, that's tragic to me. All the whole thing is tragic to me. All of it. You know what I mean? Because people were misled into believing that there was a lifestyle waiting for them that didn't exist. In reality, it's a nightmare to me. You know what I mean? But anyway, my political views, I believe, are based on logic. And I don't even really think I look at it as political. It's either the truth or I don't need to believe in it. It is what it is, okay? As far as me taking, let's say, calling myself this, that, or whatever, it's not. So, I know people in the past have I remember when I realized I was like in a deep, deep targeting issue. Like I was getting targeted, having the fake job ads. And this is when I started kind of catching on that people were trying to bother me back, I think it was like in 2013 or 2014, somewhere around there, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, okay. And I remember like I would go into certain jobs and people would insinuate that I might be interested in being a Muslim. I might be. They were all based on a racist views, racist stereotypes, whatever. They couldn't be more wrong. My views, my philosophies in life is like something you've never understood before, something you've never even thought of before. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to the New World Order. The New World Order, what it seems like biblically, is like something that people have never seen before. It's a system that is going to please, or that's meant to please everybody, satisfy everyone, but it's something you've never seen, but never even expected before. It's supposed to be like this mind blowing type thing, and apparently it seems as though I'm supposed to be a part of it just by my intuitive messages and the very fact that it seems like I'm the only person who's being able to come up with reasonable answers to anything. Okay, so yes, people are talking about my political views. I can feel it. I already talked about the New World Order, but see, I've always looked at. Okay, I'm gonna be very upfront and honest. Okay, and I'm always upfront and honest. Okay, but I'm going to be upfront and honest about how I feel about my soul tribe. Now, there's people in my soul tribe that I grew up with, really liking, admiring, and everything. But it did bother me when I found out I was a clone because I had already done research or a little bit, and I didn't actually find and put the connection into like my Mormon connection until just recently. But I understood that a lot of clones could be taken advantage of. A lot of clones are, how could I say this? Brainwashed because they have people who are controlling, their income, managing their money. And, I've spoken to some of these celebrities through things like Instagram and Facebook. And yet some of these people really do sound like, just from me talking to them, and I think I've done some instructional videos on human trafficking about people who seem detached or people who don't have a sense of time or they don't have a sense of where they are. In this case, from what I've communicate with some of these celebrities, some of these people do not seem like they understand the monetary system, how money works. You know what I mean? And so it kind of disturbs me to see this because I'm recognizing it and I'm wondering, do people see this sort of abuse? This is abuse. Okay? It's abuse. Okay? And when you're cloned, people, think that you're different. They think of you as different. Okay? They think that you don't have the same feelings. You're not a human being. This is one of the reasons why Rex Laverne, who I fucking hate and I'm glad who's dead, was more than happy to sit here and speak for me, try to make decisions for me, because he either thinks that I'm not aware of how everybody else lives and he needs to teach me this. I'm well aware of how other people live. I reject the society standards for a reason. And it's not because I'm a clone, it's because I'm wise enough to not follow the herd. And that is not being rebellious. What I want for people's lives is, I think people deserve to have a better life. Well, at least some people deserve to have a better life. Some people don't, such as Rex Laverne. I just can't have to say it one more time. Anyway, some people, they don't even deserve a second chance or even consider. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm somebody who believes in life. You know what I mean? And trying to get the best out of life. The reason why I didn't accept or adhere to the standards of what the herd goes into is because I knew it was wrong. I knew that people were breaking laws. I understood that people were doing things and seemed very gung-ho about stuff that I knew were actually illegal. And to me, my attitude was like, you do what you want to do. But see, now it's crossed over the line because we've moved into some sort of weird, a major problem. Now we have, this whole human trafficking tie-in, and oh, it's so scary. It's so very scary. And even though I've always known, even if I'm a minority of one, okay, and I am a minority, I'm a woman, I'm a black, I'm all, whatever. Even if I'm a minority of one, I don't really care if people believe what I have to say or not. And this is how I truly feel. I don't care if people say what if they, and that was fine with me. I remember having this conversation with a girl I had met up with when I was going to, because okay, when you go off a disability, this is the first time I had to leave my job because of my workplace mobbing. Specifically, this is when I left Karen Johnson's place. I was working for a place called Organized Sports, and I had met up with a girl that I used to go to elementary school with, all the way up to junior high. We went to school together, and so we started talking, and she was basically telling me, and this is my attitude at the time, okay? Because at the time, this was like 2008 or 2009. I think it was 2009. And my attitude was about humanity. We were talking about, future generations. And I was like, I really could care less about the future generations because I'm not going to be here. I had no interest in being a part of the earth because I honestly felt as though everything on it was shit. So I didn't care about this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and how this future, whatever is going. But I understand that I was just fed up. Okay, and which is normal to feel this way. Okay, it's completely normal. But I do see a problem with corruption. I have always seen a problem with corruption. Okay, but now I'm understanding the extent of the corruption. Okay, to the point of where it's like it has literally choked the life out of me. Not a joke. Okay, because I know I can feel it in myself. I don't wake up the same way anymore. I wake up disgusted, like literally disgusted. Okay, so this whole issue has completely changed me. So when it comes to the talking about the New World Order, I did start realizing that this seems like a very biblical thing. Okay, the very fact that it would spread the way that it did, the very fact that they use religion to do it. Okay, and then me coming to understand who C.B. Braganza was. C.B. Braganza was really the clone of King Solomon. So I do know a little bit about Freemasons. I know a lot about Mormons. I know a lot about Nazis. I have come here on assignment. Now, I didn't know this. Unbeknownst to me, I thought these were just interests that I took into. Like, when I was a kid, I had an interest in the Holocaust. You know what I mean? Young kid. I'm like, 6, 7. I want to watch the Holocaust. I think this is interesting. Why do I think it interesting? Because somehow or another, down the line, some sort of mental connection connected me to this is somehow related to me. You know what I mean? I had an interest in religion. I had an interest in psychology. I had an interest in law. Okay, so part of this comes from my past life. And it's weird to me, and I've said this before. How is it that, I could live in a community that would, get angry if I brought up subjects like reincarnation and stuff like that when, and then most people believe that clones haven't even, no one has actually been cloned yet. I know that recently Disney made some sort of statement about them making clones and stuff. People are talking about cloning a little bit more now, okay? But there was a time where people were just walking around with some sort of blind, what do you call it? They were so mind controlled that they were sitting there making fun of me as a clone, but they never, if they were to talk to you and say, hey, I see this article, they just cloned Dolly, that sheep. Oh, well, humans haven't been cloned yet. What? I mean, to me, that's deep down mind control. But this is the kind of stuff that Nazis are masters at. They're masters of doing this sort of mind control that I understand that it's going on. But a lot of other people are reluctant to listen. And the reason why they're reluctant to listen because it was a lot of pressure from this particular group, and the whole mindset, the whole let's gang up on people, the us versus them, and they were using religion to do it, which is exactly why this stuff was not approved by the founding fathers to establish this country, because this is exactly the kind of stuff that they do. Okay, when people start resorting and using religion to create, build societies, it can get ugly, because people get it in their mind that I'm chosen, I have the right to do this, 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 and this to you. They believe that they are, what do you call it? God, God's gift to the earth, and they really believe this. The problem with it is that other religions believe the same thing. Okay, so what do we got going here? We got war brewing. We got people doing stuff and wanting to, hurt other people and thinking that it's okay. Okay, it is not okay. So, the New World Order is going to be something, and I'm going to refer to it as the New Earth, because I knew it as the New Earth because I do believe when I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, that Jehovah's Witnesses must have understood. I mean, they understood what the New Earth was. It was a point of where people are going to bring paradise, or they want paradise is going to be on Earth, meaning like the conditions are going to change drastically. Now, I talked about, is there going to be an erasing of a monetary system? I know that when I used to visit and talk to other Jehovah's Witnesses, they envisioned that there would be no monetary system. I don't know if there's people in power who want the monetary system. Are we little game pieces that people like to play and make money off of? If that's the case, then these people need to be knocked down in order for that to happen. Okay, and until then, I can't really account on that. So instead, let's just try to focus on making the workplace better for now. Okay, like I said, all of this is beyond my control. Meaning, like, I can do everything I can. I can try to educate people. I can try to talk to people about, how to improve the situation, meaning the behavior, the consequences of it. But it takes more than just one person to make that happen. Law enforcement will have to be truly enforcing the law, being aware of the law, first of all, and then being able to enforce it. Okay, because I think there, in a lot of cases, law enforcement does not even know what it's enforcing. Okay, I have lost my faith in so-called professional people. Okay, this is the kind of stuff you get when you bring in people such as me. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for improving society. I'm going to talk about improving society until I die, which is probably a long time, which is the very fact that, since I tried to make an exit leave in 1956, and no, I'm not going to kill myself. You know what I mean? But the fact is that I understand what a shithole this place is. It's a shithole. It is hell. I honestly do believe that this place is hell. So, and then since the overall goal is to try, the overall goal is to come out at the end a winner, with hell hardly even like touching you. You know what I mean? And I think I've done some pretty good maneuvers. Unfortunately, some of it has affected me. You know what I mean? And it's going to affect me for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Just knowing that somebody would prevent me from living my life freely. The very fact that somebody went through all of this to stop me from living my life and thinking it was a joke, it drives me crazy. Okay, the other intuitive message that I want to talk a little bit more, and I will be following more on the New World Order. I'm going to call it the New Earth in the future, but for now, and I will probably talk more about it in the next newsletter. Anyway, I did get into a message to talk about expressing my views on transgenderism. Now, I don't know exactly. I'm imagining or coming to understand that the cloning process is can be different ways. Okay, I think some people start off in incubators, and then some people start and then get transferred into a human body. Some people might be directly, infused. DNA might be infused. I don't know how that works. Okay, and really, I have a basic understanding of it, and that's at the moment that's all I really need to know. Okay, but I do believe, because the fact that I've been male and female throughout my entire life, okay, which becomes melded into your personality and everything that you do, your mannerism, and sometimes it manifests in people's body, and I do believe that that's done on purpose. You know what I mean? But as far as like, transgender, I have, as Maria Gordon, I've always believed that I was a female. I do not have any gender confusion. Okay, just because I was able to produce a son, a child, okay, through the regular way, or I would say the natural way, the natural process, okay? I'm not going to get into details, but the natural process, and I created a child that way without the use of cloning or anything like that. So I consider myself to be female. Okay. Now I understand, when you've lived before, you're a clone or whatever. I looked at the picture of CB Braganza, and I'll be damned if I don't look like CB Braganza. I look like CB Braganza, more lighter, feminine version of CB Braganza, more feminine in feature. Okay, but still, I look like CB Braganza. You know what I mean? And you can tell I'm CB Braganza. Okay, but I don't have any issues of like, well, sometimes I feel like a guy. When I was younger, a teenager, I would say, yeah, a young adult, I did kind of sometimes look more androgynous in my clothing or whatever. But overall, as an adult, okay, I believe that I am a female. I'm a female, okay? I have female genitalia, as if that's any of your business. But you know what I mean. Okay, I'm a female, okay? But when it comes to, people who have been cloned, and I don't want to overstep my boundaries and talk about anyone or be nosy, okay? But, I had just recently, and I don't really know what I see on Facebook, and the reason why I'm talking about this in public and not bringing it up to this particular person, I'm referring to Elon Musk directly. It's none of my business, okay? But when I think about this situation where I did understand that he has a strange daughter or something, if she herself was cloned from a person who's cloned, who's to say that this gender issue is not naturally built inside of this person? So it's not like a matter of, I understand how deeply embedded who I am and who I've always been because I'm cloned. You know what I mean? I don't know. I personally think that it can't be helped. You are who you are. You're going to gravitate toward who you are. And if you don't end up being in that spot of who you are, then you're denying yourself and you're going to end up being miserable. Now, I understand, growing up, I was always raised to be like weird about homosexuality. You know what I mean? I was raised to be really anti-homosexual. Okay, but when I got older, I realized, it is what it is, okay? And of course, I was more accepting towards people. I remember going to the gay bar and hanging out and stuff like that to get weed and stuff like that, but I've become more open-minded about that sort of stuff. But, one of the things I never really got into, was like, I'm not into like the whole gay pride movement or anything like it. I'm just not into it. I don't see any reason for me to get into it, but that just came through my mind. Like, I do think that, in the past, people would talk about certain celebrities being kind of gender bending and stuff like that. This was a lot of like people criticizing the Christian church. My thing is, if Mormons understand that clones and how clones are created, how they are sometimes mutilated on purpose, and that, why would you make fun of somebody if you design them this way? Or bash people for being homosexual or transgender, or feeling like they identify with a certain sex, knowing that this is really what they are, but somebody made them something else. Or they turned out someone, however it works, okay? Because our makeup is a little bit different than regular people's who are born. That much I know. You know what I mean? And there's a certain feeling and a certain need that we have that is just very strong in us. That's all I can really say about that. But anyway, okay, so I was thinking about business ideas, okay? And I know that Rex Laverne and a lot of other gung-ho, over-enthusiastic people wanted to pull together and create, filter the employment sector, okay, which is illegal to do. And okay, and I do believe the Mormon Church is making like some sort of progress or doing this on purpose, like, filtering out certain people. Okay. And I don't know. I mean, I know that it's affected the 9 to 5 because I've heard other people making videos about, the creepy questions that they're asked, and I understand that I ran into problems when I was doing the Ko-fi and the Patreon thing, right? That shouldn't have never happened. I don't know if you guys control that much. It would be great if things could be changed in that direction to where people would stop doing that sort of stuff. That would be great because I would love to upload videos and get paid for it. I would love to, do some of my writing and get paid for it. You know what I mean? And I should have never had anybody intercept me. I'm not the only person who writes about the occult, and I find he's a very ignorant person. Glad he's dead. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is just that, when it came to the occult, back in the days of C.B. Braganza, who I believe people ripped off, just by looking at all the merchandise that's associated with the name King Solomon. And people like the Church of Science of Mind, a couple other churches that were incorporating C.B. Braganza's work. Mind you, Freemasonry, a lot of religions came out of Freemasonry. Mormon churches came out, it was influenced by Freemasonry. Jehovah's Witnesses were. King Solomon seemed like he was a central figure among a lot of people, okay? But yet, they never acknowledge this. It's like supposed to be hush hush. I think that this person, King Solomon, has been treated and misabused for many, 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 many times, many years. You know what I mean? So it makes me wonder, with this takeover in the 9 to 5 takeover, as well as social media, I would kind of like to know, are there any, because I really have not researched anything, because I don't know exactly how far this has happened, or this is digging, but I would like to know, how are independent women doing in business? I would like to know, are they making any progress, or are they dealing with some sort of obstacles? How deep does this go? But I have thought about having my own business, even though I don't have the resources to do that. I had mentioned before, for people who smoke marijuana, I know that marijuana is becoming more open to people. People are having more of an open mind about it, and it's not really associated so much with social deviance, right? I have always thought that marijuana should be a little bit more upscale. Like, if I had the ability to have my own dispensary, I probably would. But I would want to have some sort of unique combination. Since I am not in a position to do that, I am sending this out to the universe to give people the idea to create one. Because people need something cool like that here in the community. It would be cool. My place was called Wake and Bake. This is the idea of Wake and Bake. Of course, it would be open like, the regular hours, starting like around 10 a.m., and then close like around the normal hour at 11 o'clock or something. That would be like a weed shop, a marijuana shop, dispensary on the side. And then, of course, it would be that's Wake and Bake. And then, of course, the baking would be like, people could have things like spiral cakes, like I showed the video of spiral cakes. That was one of the reasons what I was thinking. I kept thinking, okay, this would be kind of really a cool idea if I could do this. If I could make money on Patreon, right? And then I could invest the money into making a business. I even considered doing a dispensary. Yes, I think about these things. I try to make plans for myself because I'm trying to survive. But we had Rex Laverne, who I'm glad is dead, continually interrupt me. But since this, chances are I'm not going to be able to have my Wake and Bake shop, if somebody is interested in opening the business and nobody is obstructing you, could you please do something like that? Because we really need something cool like that, okay? So going on to my Wake and Bake shop it would have like spiral cakes of different colors, magical type cool foods, baked goods, and that's what it would sell. Wake and Bake. And then also it would have like an activity type place where people could have nightclub type poetry. People could stand up and do open mic. If you feel like you hate life or whatever, you could get up and talk about it. And then, of course, it would have like times where there would be live music. I think that would be a really cool idea. And that was something I really wanted to do. And since these people aren't going to let me do it because they're assholes, and I'm so glad that Lex Laverne is dead, somebody do that. If somebody come up with an idea, if you have the money, the resource to do it, you should do it. Do it here in Bakersfield. I mean, I would move to Lancaster, but I get the feeling that I'm not able to do that because I do not have the resources to do that. Because, Rex Laverne, who I am very glad is dead, created all these problems and my car got repossessed, which limits me to being here in Bakersfield. Okay? But it would be a good idea. Why? Because people need socialization, people need things to do, okay? And I do think that marijuana, the use of marijuana, should be more upscale. That's my personal view of it because it's not necessarily, like I said, I think it should be moved away from the idea of just people being bums and being stoners, okay? Because I really do think that there's something more to marijuana than just getting stoned. So anyway, and wake and bake, the idea of having like, coming in the morning, having your coffee and maybe having an open discussion, enjoying these awesome baked goods would be really cool. So yeah, I am interested in knowing, about women businesses, not talking about online business, not talking about making money on Patreon or social media. And I'm not talking about, that's what I'm talking about. Are women thriving in business right now? I need to see proof of that. I don't know. Or have people been putting things in place to obstruct their efforts as well? I need to know how deep this is. Okay? Because what happened to me scares the hell out of me. I'm disturbed that something like this could happen in the United States. It bothers me. Okay? And I do understand it has a lot to do with my bloodline. Okay? I am not ashamed of my bloodline. Okay? I am proud to be the clone of King Solomon. I am proud of it. Okay? I am here to hurt no one. You know what I mean? Unless, of course, you mess with me like Rex Laverne, who I'm very glad is dead. But my thing is, I come in peace. I'm somebody who believes in making the best of life. You know what I mean? I'm somebody who can see that most people are not happy, and I want people to be happy. I want people to live better lives. Um, I did want to talk before I close up. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the school curriculums. I did mention my issue about are we on the same page? See, because now I'm writing there this whole thing, my life students project, which consists of 3 videos. It's the autodidacts and also the moral reset, which I'm working on. And I realize there's more to it than that. I mean, I got to add more to that. Okay, and then there's also pathways of excellence. When it comes to pathways of excellence, it's just making me think even deeper about the education system because the education system, obviously, the main reason why people get educated, and I believe education should be making you a better person all the way around. Okay, but not just that, learning life skills, but also to get a job in the future. Now, some of these people who or get into politics. Okay, so with the, for example, with a education from like a predominantly Mormon background, I I know there's BYU. Okay, I know that there is like Brigham Young University. I don't know about their other schools. Like, in Utah, their public schools, if it's predominantly Mormon, what are they learning? You know what I mean? If it's private schools, like from grade school through high school or whatever, what are they learning when it comes to certain topics? Is it only Mormon leaders? Is it a world view of what is it, or do people realize that not everybody sees the eyes through Mormonism? See, this is an interesting thing for me to find out and understand because in order for society to work well, this is not me saying I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I need you to see this my way. But one thing we do need to agree on is that everybody needs to be on the same page. Okay, because you can glorify and admire and hold these people who are associated with Mormonism, who have played an integral part in the United States government and our system in general. But at the same time, the United States has been formulated by other people outside of that faith, and that needs to be understood. Because even if a person whose background is Mormon, okay, if they're going to be working in the White House, not everybody is going to be Mormon. Okay, not everybody in this country is Mormon. So when it comes to these sort of subject matters, this is interesting for me to know. What do you see? What are you learning in those subjects? You know what I mean? Because really, the idea of society is to work when it comes to government. Now you can have your own personal opinions, and Mormons can be superior religion in their own minds and whatever. But when it comes to the government and how it functions, it's got to be unified in thought. This is one of the reasons why religion is not brought into it. Okay, it needs to run on a different, on a more of a logical, a way of thinking, more rational, and not religious. So I'm interested in knowing about that. So that gives me a little more research to do. And if somebody knows the answer to that, or who can reply right away, that would be great. But that is something I will be looking at, as far as worldview has everything to do with our education. It really does. Okay. I remember hearing people talking about curriculums, and they always sit there and talk about the left and and to me, all that stuff just goes in one ear and out the other. Okay, because like I don't consider myself left, even though people want to put that on me. They would love to throw those titles on me. They want to throw a title on me. I am not going to accept your title. Okay, but I'm not going to let it offend me either. The thing is that to me, it either makes sense, it either does or it doesn't. It's either grounded in truth or it isn't. Okay. And you obviously know that I'm not somebody who wants to waste my time or devote any time to bullshit. Okay. So when it comes to understanding the curriculum, when it comes to private schools versus public school, and I'm going to consider homeschool private as well. Okay. Because you can be selective about what gets taught in those schools for those curriculums. Okay. There are certain subjects, that it's okay. Like I would say mathematics is pretty much cut and dry for everyone. Okay. 2 plus 2 is 4 for black people. It's 2 plus 2 is 4 for everyone across the board. Okay. Mathematics is pretty much going to stay the same. Okay. So another thing would be sometimes science can also be biased. What is it? I'm interested when it comes to religion, versus being able to function among other people in society. What are your views on science? Versus what's learned in public school. Is there some sort of religious spin? And this is not me trying to put people down at all. Because this is about education. This is about education. You know what I mean? And how people can proceed in the future, and being able to walk and truly be productive instead of doing things that are destructive. Because like I mentioned, the little boy who was actually praying the Pledge of Allegiance, these things can easily be confused, and it can carry on to adulthood. You know what I mean? And it could also and the big reason why is because it's in these textbooks, or people are walking away with some sort of misunderstanding. So where is this problem happening? And it needs to be tackled. And there needs to be some sort of agreement as to what we learn about these sort of things, even if it is public school. Because even if it is public school, what I mean? Like I said, it's fine and dandy to highlight these people that are part of your religion, whether that be Mormon, Baptist, whatever. Okay, that's all very good, but we need to look at the government as a whole and how it's supposed to function. Okay, because it can create people being biased, and it can create things like genocidal plots like this right here. So this is a very interesting topic. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up, and I will be back with another video sometime later. I'm just doing my therapy thing. Moria is bored as hell on Monday, so I'll be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Good night.